Lilian Ndungu, if I pronounce it properly. I'm sorry if I don't. She's an accomplished digital agriculture and transformation expert with over 14 years of experience in climate resilience, agriculture, food security, policy development, research, and sustainable development. She has provided strategic advisory, programming, and technical support in various capacities to inform the design and implementation of digitally enabled innovations aimed at improving the productivity and resilience of smallholder farmers and government functions in Africa. Lilian has a deep understanding of the challenges facing smallholder farmers and has been instrumental in developing policies and programs that support their needs. With that, I would like to hand over to her. Hi, Lilian.
Hello, and hello, everyone. Glad, thank you for a very wonderful introduction. And I want to go directly to my presentation on what I think is a wholesome approach to sustainable food systems. And I'll start with a background that, the world, we're already experiencing inflation. And if you think about the Ukraine war, I personally, at the time when this was starting, I did not expect the kind of impact that the war had on Africa, and especially disruptions in food markets. We've seen a huge increase in food prices, lack of access to fertilizer. And, this is in the face of a population that is already being affected or already sensitive to the changes in climate. And we find that, the population is already trying to cope, albeit differently. So in the face of these challenges, what I propose is a three-pronged approach to improving our food systems, starting with the role of technology. Given my background, this is the first thing. And technology can play a huge role in the way that we innovate and improve the way we manage our food systems. We have a lot of smart digital technologies that have already been talked about that can support us to plan in advance and, even optimize the ingredients that we have at home to make sure that we are reducing wastage at home, and also with the capability of using technologies for value addition and extending the shelf life of perishable products. But technology also provides a chance to optimize our management of food supply and demand from high production areas to low production areas. We've seen the use of blockchain to support value chains from delivery. We've seen value chain traceability being used to support monitoring of produce from where it's being produced to the point where it gets to the market, but to also optimize access to opportunities such as markets for farmers. And so technology can be used to reduce inequalities and to help farmers especially to put their products into the market. And I think that we cannot talk about sustainable food systems without talking about the role of government. And government should take the lead in promoting sustainable practices. In some countries in Africa, we're already seeing a promotion of kitchen gardens and urban farming. But, even in areas where land is limited, technologies such as hydroponics and aquaponics are supporting production of food. Even, looking at basic food production, for example, for vegetables and small fruits. But I think it also speaks to our consumption patterns, and government has to take a lead in promoting local indigenous food consumption. If you look at what is termed as a normal diet in urban areas, you're going to find a lot of wheat flour and maize flour and rice being part of what is termed as indicators of food availability. But then in Africa, we have a lot of indigenous food that can still feed our population and which are more suitable in terms of production in our locales. But unless we change our consumption patterns, then the market viability for farmers producing these indigenous foods at a larger scale again remains limited. Then there's also the role of governments in strengthening local production. Countries like Rwanda have started or have actually made a lot of progress in supporting within country production of fertilizers and seeds. And this means that they are less reliant or less affected by the global changes. For example, the case example of the Ukraine war. But there is also a need for governments to incentivize businesses with sustainable practices. This is already happening in very many places, but there's a lot that needs to be done to incentivize businesses to really create sustainable practices to ensure that we are reducing the waste. But there's also the issue of public awareness. And while we can say that this could be something that needs to be promoted by the private sector and by other actors, I think government also has a role in creating that public awareness for consumers or for countries to adopt healthy and sustainable dietary habits. And when we move over to the households, there's a lot that can be done. And if you look at the statistics, I was looking at the statistics, and $1 trillion worth of food are wasted or lost every year. And in Africa, there is a lot of food that is lost after the farmers actually, get to the end of the production cycle. This is estimated at around 40% in Africa. So 40% of the food that farmers grow is actually lost after they've produced it. So post-harvest, between the farm to fork dynamics, once the food is produced, the value addition of post-processing and post-harvest handling, the logistics of getting that food to the market and getting that food to the consumer and on their plate, that is where a lot of the losses are held. And so ideally, even if we want to do nothing except improve our post-harvest from farm to the fork management of food, by strengthening value addition to increase shelf life, but also in strengthening the culture within households so that there's mindful consumption. And Dr. Kano has already talked about this, but conscious consumption, adopting a clear your plate approach, innovating the reuse of scraps, and adding more indigenous foods to our diets, and also cultural changes are some of the things that we can do. But there are also other things that can be done within the household. If you look at our biases when we go to the market, you tend to choose, the most appealing foods, and so the most appealing produce. And so this creates a supply problem because we need to start considering less than perfect produce because we only want to buy the perfect produce. And this contributes to the amount of food that is being lost. And the concept of clearing your plate does not really apply just in our homes, even in hotels. I think there is a lot that can be done within the value chains, especially institutions that are producing or, the hotel industry and any other institution that is, doing catering for food, to make sure that they have a way to reduce the amount of wastage that happens. If you look at our countries, you're going to find that there is a lot of produce going bad within the supermarkets. If you go to a market, the dump field will be filled with a lot of food that is being wasted. If you go to your household and you look at your dustbin, there are a lot of scraps. There's a lot of food that goes bad during preparation or during storage or during consumption. And so it's a call for us to change and to improve the way we consume and the way we purchase. And right now, we also have many apps that are supporting us to plan. If you go to the internet, there are apps that allow you to put in the ingredients that you have and help you figure out the best, the possible meals that you can make with what you have. And if we are conscious about the way we purchase and consume and approach level, food related cultures, then there's a lot that we can do to reduce the amount of wastage. And I've seen a specific case where hotels or food chains putting a bin where you can put food that is untouched, that is, that you're not going to eat, in a place where it can be shared with the less fortunate. And others have set up donation boxes for food, including in supermarkets, where you can buy something and donate so that it goes to the less fortunate. So there are a lot of efforts, but a lot of incentives are also needed so that we move from a pattern of, mindlessness in terms of post-harvest management, in terms of consumption, in terms of reuse, and in terms of how we are planning our lives, and how we are being mindful in our consumption patterns. So there's a lot that can be done, and I feel that what I've covered is the three key actors, that is the government and the household, and I've also talked a bit about the institutions, and also the role of technology in supporting us to be more mindful and to create a culture that supports or helps to reduce these post-harvest losses. So I would like to stop there and hand over to the session moderator. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Lilian. Thanks for the insight as well. Please stay on, because we are